Well, that was potentially, hopefully, the roughest performance from the Indianapolis Colts that we will see this season. We're going to break it down. We're going to break down the reasons to be hopeful, the reasons to still be excited about this Colts team, even though they're going 0-2, which, again, is not the 0-2 part is not the surprise, right? But we'll cover all that and more. What's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts every single day. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe. Give the whole ordeal. We cover all things Colts every single day, and you don't want to miss out on everything going on inside that Colts organization that we have been covering now for almost a year. But we're talking today about the painful loss between the Colts and the Packers, the painful loss to a backup quarterback in Malik Willis. Indianapolis Colts 10, Green Bay Packers 16. Now, Green Bay Packers moved to 1-1, and the Colts are 0-2. And let's give a little breakdown, because I think that there's going to be this jump to the box score, right? Like you can figure everything out about what happened in the game from the box score, but I think it tells a completely different story on what actually happened. So the first one to cover is Anthony Richardson, who I think a lot of people are going to look at, and we're going to point to this box score, and they're going to immediately say that he was the problem today. And I don't, for no intents and purposes, can you associate any blame to one specific player, but I also don't think Anthony Richardson is that guy by any means. Anthony Richardson was 17 of 34 with 204 yards, with an average of 6 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, and it says 3 interceptions. Obviously, the last one was on the Hail Mary, so I think we should realistically put it at 2 interceptions, but whatever. And then a passer rating of 41.8, which is less than half, almost a third of what he had in last week's game against the Texans. Malik Willis, on the other hand, was 12 of 14 with 122 yards, 8.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 126.8, which is very good. But here's where the numbers, again, is going to make it seem like it was a way different game than it was, because you look at Jonathan Taylor, 12 carries for 103 yards. I'm going to pull this up here so you can also see what I'm looking at. 12 carries for 103 yards, 8.6 yards per attempt, which is incredible. And then Josh Jacobs on the other side was 32 of 151 for an average of 4.7, long of 34. So this makes it definitely seem much different than it was. But if you were watching the game, you saw that this Packers team was doing whatever they want. They had 235 yards in the first half of just pure rushing yards. The Colts defense could not do anything. And, of course, Colts Twitter and myself included were saying, fire Gus Bradley. I will say that I do not think Gus Bradley is to blame for our running defense, because schematically it's not working, right? Like, it's actually the schematics are working. They're getting behind the line. The problem is on the defense itself, and specifically on the linebackers and the front four. This is where we're running into a lot. I mean, Nick Cross had 10 first-half tackles, which is just not where you want your safety to be. Nick Cross is killing it, but, man, it's not looking good. So, obviously, almost 100, I think 120 of those yards came in the first half of this year. Malik Willis had a couple runs. Jaden Reed had a couple of big runs. So this was they had 261 yards. This is a team that, this is, again, the Colts are giving up over 200 yards rushing. Almost all of that was in the first half. I think in the second half they had a combined, 32 rushing yards, which is much more of where you want to be for this Colts defense. So whatever adjustment they made at halftime worked, because they were able to stop the run, and it was a game that was 13-3 going into the fourth quarter. It was definitely a winnable game. But the name of the game today wasn't, again, not something you're going to see on the box score. The name of the game was drops. Anthony Richardson was 17 of 34 today. He hit guys in the chest on 10 more passes, and all of them were dropped. You had drops by Pittman, drops by Pierce. Pierce slipped on one on a ball that easily could have changed the entire game. Adonai Mitchell, there was a couple drops that hit him in the hands, almost in the chest. And this is a Colts team that, specifically, Jonathan Taylor had a couple of drops. Adonai Mitchell had a good catch late in the game, but, again, there was one where he just stopped running. I think that this is so much of this goes into chemistry. Not only the fact that this is Anthony Richardson's 5th career start, or I think maybe 6th career start, Not only to mention that, but this is a new offense. Alec Pierce is not usually the wide receiver 1, and we weren't even calling him wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. We were saying, can he make the roster? And now we're seeing Alec Pierce have these really, really good games. But you look here at the targets to reception. Let me pull this back up so you can see what I'm seeing. You look here at targets to receptions. Alec Pierce, 7 targets, 5 receptions. Jonathan Taylor, 4 targets, 2 receptions. One of those drops was not his fault. Adonai Mitchell, 4 targets, 1 reception. Mo Alley Cox, 1-1. Michael Pittman, 7-3. Pittman had some bad drops today. There were some overthrows. There were some bad drops. And there was a couple of reads that, and Greg Olson had a really good analysis on this, a couple of reads that Anthony Richardson was making where he would just lock into one receiver. That's inexperience. You see that with so many rookie quarterbacks. Let's take out C.J. Stroud, right? Because I think he's an anomaly. He's a freak that comes from a system that apparently just molded this guy into one of the best quarterbacks. Rookie quarterbacks, even the best of them, don't automatically come out and just know everything. And we have to treat Anthony Richardson like a rookie quarterback, not only because he missed a majority of last season, but because he had 1 season starting in college. And this is his 22nd start in football, right? Like college, NFL total, 22nd career start. And when he was making plays, he looked really, really good. But again, Anthony Richardson did a much better job today of hitting the singles and doubles more than he was trying to aim for the home runs. Now, there were a couple times he was still aiming for the home runs. Green Bay Packers did a great job of eliminating all of that. They were running 2 high safeties, 3 high safeties almost the entirety of the game. They were running deep cover 2, deep cover 3, and forcing him to kind of go deeper, but the problem was they were still getting pressure. So there was so much of that going on in this team. But to put a spin on this, right, I don't want to focus on the bad, because we can talk about the run defense, and we will. We'll talk about the pass defense, and we will. We'll talk about how Jalen Jones is potentially made one of the laziest plays I've ever seen with allowing that catch to Romeo Doubs there in the end of the second quarter. We could talk about all that. But I think the important thing to note is Alec Pierce is breaking out. Jonathan Taylor is still the dude. Anthony Richardson still was able to get within 1 possession. And honestly, you subtract the drops, this is a much different ball game. Now, by no means am I saying this is a pretty ball game, by any means. I'm still confused as to why Jonathan Taylor didn't play in the fourth quarter, aside from the fact that he's not the best receiving back and he's not necessarily the best pass blocker. But still, I think the play that will go down in infamy today is the fact that Trey Sermon on that 3rd and 2, where they kind of run like an RPO and Anthony Richardson kind of shovels it to Trey Sermon. It was just a bad play call, and it was a bad read by Anthony Richardson. Nothing happened from it. It ended up being a 4th down and 4. But then you also, one thing I will talk about that has been frustrating me, the misses by Matt Gay. I can't get over it. The one today was just inexcusable. But lastly, the thing I want to talk about is Nick Cross still led the team in tackles. E.J. Speed had 11 tackles, Zaire Franklin had 10 tackles, and Ronnie Thomas had 6. Those are not the guys you want to have all your tackles. Tyquan Lewis didn't have that many tackles. Roquan Davis only had 3 tackles. Kenny Moore had 4 tackles. So many of your guys did not have a lot of tackles. I mean, this isn't where you want to be. And I think there's a lot of things to clean up, but this is a young team. This is a young roster. Obviously, the defense is already beaten up. DeForest Buckner, hopefully he comes back better. We'll cover that as soon as we get any sort of information on whatever that ankle injury was. But I think if I were to be able to encourage you, to implore you, take a deep breath. We're 0-2. I don't think anyone expected us to walk out of the first 2 games of the season better than 0-2. But we've also only lost to a combined 8 points. And I think that you're talking about Green Bay Packers and the Houston Texans. A lot of people have those two teams making it. Now, obviously, Jordan Love's in the game. I think this game is just blown out of the water because Malik Willis didn't throw the ball that much. And when he did, it was very consistent. But I think that there's so much more reason for optimism than I think people are looking. They're looking at the box score and treating it like that's it. Like that's the whole thing. There's so much more to look at with this Colts team. And I honestly think, defense aside, because I think the defense, we've been calling for it all off season. We've been calling for it now, obviously, into the regular season. We've been calling for that. This defense needs help. And I don't think it's Gus Bradley. Although I don't think Gus Bradley's helping necessarily. But schematically, it wasn't a bad game. It was lack of tackling. It was lack of experience. You've got guys out there, and it just doesn't look like the same motivated team that we're seeing, and I think that's causing a lot of issues. And don't get me wrong, Anthony Richardson needs to clean this up. Like there's a lot of things, but this is his 5th or 6th NFL start. This is his 5th NFL start. This is his 22nd career start. I think that there's so much more reason for optimism than there is reason to look and immediately start calling. I saw people on Twitter that were immediately saying that Anthony Richardson is not the guy we need to sub him out. And that's not at all. I think Anthony Richardson is still the long-term quarterback. And again, if he's able to figure out the nickel and dimes, he's going to be so lethal. He already is so lethal, and I'm so excited to see where he goes with this season. But that's the initial analysis from the game. I will post more videos tomorrow covering all of the details. We'll talk about the injuries. We'll talk about who's coming back. Hopefully, Julian Blackmon and Josh Downs make it back to next week, and hopefully, DeForest Buckner makes it back soon. But that is the initial analysis for today. Like I said, take a deep breath. It's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. The Colts are only 0-2. The Titans lost today. The Jags lost today. The Texans play tonight, so we'll see if they lose. But they're not out of this yet. This isn't even the worst start that the Colts have had, and I think that there's so much more looking up than there is looking down, even in what appeared to be a dumpster fire today against a backup quarterback. So I'll take a deep breath, and we're going to make it out on the other side.